Narendra Taneja, India's leading energy expert. Your thoughts, same theme, Narendra. Ultimately, when all's said and done, is $84 Brent the same as $30, silver and 10,000 copper? It is the high price. It is the elevated happy price.
Well, I think my sense is that, look, let's not forget that oil has its own universe and is with its own fundamentals. So yes, commodity, and of course we can always compare, but I think it's in a completely different league. I mean, on the one hand, you see what's happening in Washington, D.C., where the Biden administration seems to be out to just basically, push oil into a deep history as soon as possible, all the initiative. But at the same time, look at economies like India and China, Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Africa, Latin America. They need more oil to sustain growth, to pull people out of poverty and expand their economies. So you see that contradiction at the same time. While they have only 1.4 billion consumers of energy in the global north, but here in the global south, we have 6.7 billion energy consumers. So at the end of the day, you see demand is going to be driven by the global south in time to come. So my own sense is that, when it comes to crude oil prices, I think $80 is probably what's kind of going to stay in that region, unless, of course, the Middle East gets out of control, or something happens in Ukraine, which we can't see it on the horizon yet, or something happens in the Far East, over Taiwan, we don't know yet. But unless there is that kind of, gigantic, geopolitical trigger, I see absolutely no reason, despite the best efforts by OPEC, Saudi Arabia, and a few others, I don't think oil is going to go beyond $80 per barrel. I mean, in that region, it may 85, 86, it may go down to 76, 75, but the region is going to be about 80. I see absolutely no reason for oil to, I'm talking, of course, the near future, like for 4 or 5 months. I see absolutely no reason for oil to be anything more than $80 per barrel on average.
Narendra, big news this week, dominating all the headlines amongst a variety of things, is the trade tariff war that's between China and the US, sort of escalated this week with the US Biden administration adding some significant tariffs, customs duties to the import of particularly electric vehicles, but other sort of clean technologies. As this growing trade war, this particularly elevated tariff war, becomes more and more pronounced, what does that mean for the rest of Asia? What does it mean for India?
Well, you see, I mean, this economic polarization is for real. The fact is that, the US is trying its level best, basically countries like India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Vietnam, and most of the ASEAN countries, and of course Australia and New Zealand, to be on the American side. And if you look at it with a microscope, that's exactly what's happening, because China, the way China is conducting, its foreign policy and defense policy vis-a-vis neighbors and other countries in the region, is not very happy. Countries are not very happy with that. So the result is that, though we have seen the optics of the last 8 weeks where the US looks like, is trying to get back to China to normalize relations, speaking right language, but that has more to do with the situation in Ukraine. And they are also trying their level best that China doesn't get too close to Russia, but it has already happened. That's already happened. So I don't think this is going to make any difference. And China, on the one hand, it has its own worldview, and they are very clear that they want to be a superpower, militarily, if not economically. And they are investing heavily in military, therefore. And so therefore, a lot of this data that's coming from China and all that, many of us in our part of the world don't really buy them, don't trust them. But China is in a difficult spot right now. On the one hand, they need the United States. At the same time, they hate the United States. And the situation for the US is more or less similar. They don't like China anymore. And at the same time, they're trying to contain China to the extent possible. So result is what is there, whether it's a trade war or whether it's a tariff war or this kind of a cold economic cold war and so on and so forth. And that's only going to escalate. And the result is that countries like, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, Australia, India, Bangladesh, most of the ASEAN countries, and many of the countries in the Middle East are going to go with the West or going to go with the US. And therefore, this polarization, economic, trade, energy, politics, everything is going to basically, test Asia's resilience over the next 20, 30 years. So the fact is that now it's all China versus the United States and many countries, including like India. We have no option but to go along with the West, to go along with the US. And moreover, we are a democracy, liberal country, so we feel more comfortable dealing with them. And
I mean, in the immediate, I mean, over the big, medium, long term, all of this issue is there through the time horizon. But in the immediate term, India is already benefiting, if you like, from the post-COVID supply chain disruption. We're seeing sort of the idea that manufacturing, high-end technology manufacturing could move to India, is moving to India, new supply chains emerging.
Oh, yes. I mean, first quickly on China. In China, there's nothing short term. Everything is long term. What looks like even tomorrow, that's part of their long-term strategy. China always think long term. The United States always think short term. That's the problem. You see, but coming back to your question, the end of America-led unipolar world and the new multipolar world is still 20, 30 years away. So that has opened up a lot of areas, a lot of space for countries like India to build its own universe. And that's precisely what India is trying to do. And not only India, some medium powers also like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and several others trying to do exactly the same. But the point here is that, is China going to go basically its path very quietly? No, that's not going to happen. So I think it's going to be very rough, and therefore Asia is where you have 4.4 billion oil consumers, energy consumers as a whole, and you're going to see kind of lot of turbulence, economic turbulence, trade turbulence, political turbulence, geopolitical turbulence, climate turbulence along the way, because as I said, that India is benefiting. Yes, you're right. Manufacturing. Look at Apple, for instance. These days, when you go to a store in Dubai or San Francisco and Tokyo, you buy an Apple iPhone. Chances are it may be made in India now. So
it's certainly assembled in India.
In China also they assemble.
Of course, we are still in this forever election cycle in India, getting near the end now. Always great to have your insights as to where it's going and what the outcome looks like.
Well, I mean, we are in the middle of the election season, as you know, and the last phase will take place on the June 1st, and on June 4th, we will have the results. And very exciting elections. And by the way, when I come to shows like you, as you know, I'm a member of the ruling party, but my profession is energy. When I come on shows, I'm brutally neutral.
Yes.
So so it's nothing to do with my political affiliation.
Of course.
So so right now my sense is based on my own travels across the country and interactions and what I see in the media and interaction with politicians on both sides. My sense is that the BJP will return to power, and with Mr. Modi back as the prime minister for the third time. But it may not be majority as big as, let's say, the party would like to have in terms of the alliance called NDA. They are seeking 400 seats in a parliament of 543. So that may be a bit too ambitious, but they may also be, the whole thing may be part of the strategy, psychological thing, targeting opposition so that they get demoralized. And they think, all right, BJP is like a very well-oiled machine, like a juggernaut, very difficult to stop. And that's all political strategy. But my sense is BJP is coming to power. But we may see a stronger opposition in parliament, which means that, next parliament might be more vibrant, and opposition might be more assertive. And as you know, that Indian Prime Minister only yesterday said that, look, if some people are getting rich, we are okay with it, because then that wealth will be transferred to those who need that wealth. But everybody can't get rich at the same time. So it's nice to hear such vibes in India, because majority of Indians are still very socialist in their mindset, very.
And just on that point on the winning of the election, like in the UK, from a parliamentary first past the post system, you can have a majority, but still only get around what, 40% of the vote? Is that more or less?
Even if you get less.
Less.
Yeah, so it's just depend. For instance, let's say the BJP candidate gets 400,000 and the Congress candidate gets 399,000, would still be the loser. Well, you'll be out.
And there might be many other candidates in that same constituency.
Yeah, so our system is not like in Germany or in Sweden. Our system is like in Britain, and
First past the post.
so therefore it's very different. So people are used to it. But just to conclude on this,
please.
Just conclude on this. I think my sense is that Indian economy seems to be quite okay with it and happy with it, because the country is more kind of pro-reforms, economic growth, and people can see the benefit. At the same time, the government has made sure that those below poverty line, or those who need kind of economic handholding in terms of food subsidy and all that, that is available. Now, the Congress party, the opposition party, which is more left-leaning, has promised actually double for what the BJP gives to those who need food security help or handholding. They promised double. So that means that, even the left-oriented parties are turning a little bit right when it comes to such policy, which is not a bad news as far as Indian politics is concerned.